How's it going, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here. It's May 30th, 2025, and oh baby, do we have ourselves a lot of different Mets topics to get into for our latest Big Mets update segment, because as we know, the Amazons will start a 3-game set against the Colorado Rockies tonight, and we're going to wrap up the show by giving you guys a quick preview as to what we should hopefully expect in that 3-game matchup. But before we get there, let's talk about everything that's happened in Mets land, from the Mets making a very interesting infielder signing the past day or so, that being a Mr. David Villar. Who is David Villar? What are the Mets ultimately getting in a player like him? Will he impact the Mets at the major league level this season? And if so, to what degree? We're going to break down everything you need to know on that front, as is the case with everything happening in the farm, with guys like Ronnie and Mauricio continuing to tear the cover off the baseball. We have to break down Ronnie's latest performance there in Syracuse and evaluate when we could potentially see him at the major league level. And speaking of guys that we could see at the major league level, let's also talk about Frankie Montas, as we have some key news on that front. How's he fared in his latest rehab outing? We're going to share some light on that, as well as what's also going on with key pitchers in Jonah and Blade Tidwell, two pitchers that absolutely dazzled up in the minor leagues this past night. We'll get into their individual player breakdowns, along with what is happening with guys like Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto, courtesy of some great articles the past couple days from Sammon of The Athletic. Thank you guys so much for hitting that like and subscribe button as your first chime in. It's greatly appreciated. Please let me know all your initial reactions in the comments down below to today's following topics that we have for you. And as always, shout out to our amazing sponsors here at SeatGeek that has you covered for all your ticketing needs. Check them out by clicking the link down in the description for 10% off your next ticket purchase. Shout out to our great friends here at BetUS that have you covered on the sports betting front as always. And before we move forward in today's video, everybody, let's first hear a quick word from our sponsor that I'm so excited to break down, that being at Mando. Mando, the all-purpose, all-body deodorant, which I'm so excited to get into. Why, you might ask, Wardy? That's because this is a product that I've been using well before they even reached out and we've connected here to get a sponsorship deal done. Shout out to all you amazing Mets fans who helped make this possible, that we are reaching highs here on the platform, that we're getting deals with Mando. Mando, love their whole body deodorant. And if you guys don't know Mando, let me enlighten you folks, because they have a plethora of products that, mind you, are all clinically proven to block odor all day and control your body odor up to not 24, not 48, but yes, you guessed it, 72 hours. This has been a massive game changer from the time that I've used their product over this past year versus the previous deodorants that I've used. And mind you, this is not just for pits. This can be for behind your knees. This can be for, the areas that we're not going to talk about. Wherever you feel like you need deodorant, that is where Mando comes into play. And with their starter pack, which I have in my possession to a degree, folks, you have a lot of the other amazing products that they have, including their normal whole body deodorant Mando stick. We have their Mando wipes, which I absolutely love. Where were these back when I was in middle school and high school, especially, where I'm sweating bullets throughout the day just because I'm sitting there stressed doing classwork and stuff? These would have been awesome to have for my pits throughout the entire school day. I digress. We got the whole body deodorant as well, which is fantastic. We have the Mando body wash here, which is so good, and one of my favorites as well, the whole body deodorant, but this time in the liquid form here. Again, all the Mando products, I cannot say enough glowing things about them. Sponsor or not, I will continue to promote this brand, and for great reason, everybody. So now I'm calling on each and every one of you. If you guys want to get in on Mando, listen up to the following, folks, and please sign up today. How do you sign up? It's by controlling the body odor anywhere with @shop.mando and get $5 off your starter pack. Mind you, that's over 40% off with our amazing promo code. You guessed it, Wardy, W-A-R-D-Y, at shopmando.com. Shout out to Mando once more for being an awesome sponsor of the platform, and thank you, Mets fans, for making it happen. Shout out to our friends here at Mando once more, everybody, and let's get this party started by first breaking down the latest signing in Mets land. In case you guys have been living under a rock or just didn't pay attention to more of these smaller transactions that we've seen over the past 24 to 48 hours, and this has everything to do with, yes, you guessed it, David Villar. Now let's get into who David Villar is and why ultimately the Mets made the following move that they did, because I'm sure that this comes off as a very interesting one for you guys, as well as to why the Mets even made this move in the first first place. Again, there are justified reasons as to why they made this move, as David Stearns always has a reason for every single move he does. So let's get into what is so special here, if at all, about the latest here with Mr. David Villar. So in case you guys don't know David Villar, let me enlighten you. The 28-year-old infielder was acquired by the Mets that we just saw over the past day or two, and what the Mets are getting right away is a true utility option, but a utility option that could actually play out better at the major league level than maybe some other guys, whether the Mets were considering in AAA Syracuse or potentially they're externally separate from David Villar himself, everybody. And as you guys can see, and let me just fix this real quick so that way it's a little bit more centered for you guys here. Just give me 1 second. Again, thank you for your patience. Okay, guys, David Villar, in a very small sample size so far this season for the San Francisco Giants, did in fact put up still a very respectable 9 games, 25 plate appearances, 4 runs scored, 1 RBI. Ignore the 15 stolen bases. That is an error on my front. That's for my previous player graphic. That's why the 2025 numbers say 15 stolen bags, but careers say 1, because he only has 1 career stolen base. Please just disregard the 15. If Wardy doesn't have at least 1 typo on these graphics, something's going wrong clearly. But all jokes aside, he had himself 4 runs scored, 0 home runs, 1 RBI, no stolen bases at this point, 200 average, a 360 on base, and a 250 slug for a not so great, that we saw there just under, and shout out Mets Digest there on YouTube as always, but just under there pardon me, what do you call it? A negative 0.5 or 0.1 WAR. And the reason why David Villar, very, very limited sample size is what we're looking at here. That's why if you look at Villar's career numbers and just under 120 career MLB games each of the past 3 seasons released. Total this, 43 runs scored, 15 home runs, 41 RBIs, 1 stolen bag, a 200 average, a 292 on base, and a 391 slug for 93% on the WRC+. That means he was just around 7% below league average as a batter, whereas this season in his very small 9-game, 25 play appearance sample size, he was 10% below league average. So again, a guy that's pretty much a fringe major league player also that has plenty at the minor league level as well when we look at the reps in particular for someone like him. So far this season, we're seeing David Villar right now. Funny enough, we're seeing this season alone, looking at his minor league numbers, we'll actually just do the deep dive right now, everybody. In 15 games, he has a 368 average, a 439 on base, and a 439 slug for a just under 900 OPS there in the minor leagues with 1 home run, 7 RBIs, and 8 walks so far this season. Again, very, very limited sample size. I completely understand that, but the reason why we emphasize the minor league numbers goes a little bit in hand as to why the Mets were seeking someone like him, because David Villar throughout a 2 to 3 to 4 year career at most right now, who burst on the scene in the 2022 season with the Giants with 9 home runs and 24 RBIs, hasn't really been able to sniff those numbers too much since then, albeit it has been limited sample sizes. So what does Villar bring to a team like the New York Mets? And mind you, he was 24% above league average as a batter in his age 25 season. Well, you're looking at a true infield option, a guy that obviously can play third base, first base, DH, pretty much all over the infield is what you're getting in someone like Villar. And is he going to do it at an overly proficient level? I wouldn't necessarily say that, but what you are getting Villar right away, in my opinion, and my initial reaction to this, is that this is the potential Luis Angel Acuna roster replacement. And before Mets fans go freaking out at me, because trust me, I don't want Acuna to go anywhere, obviously, but Acuna obviously has cooled off a bit since his red-hot start to the year with this Mets team in a limited sample size. While Acuna obviously still has the upside, tremendous upside between his great base running ability, his defensive ability, that alone is what's kind of keeping him on this roster when the bat isn't necessarily carrying the way it otherwise should. If the Mets do not want to put themselves in a position where they feel that they're cornered with Luis Angel Acuna as to what to do, because maybe they know that they really don't have much of a consistent routine for him in the lineup, because while guys like Beatty are playing, or at times like McNeil's playing, and if Vientos really gets things going hot with the bat, then you're really limited, because then he will get more consistent reps at third base and or DH. So that leaves Acuna as kind of, the last man standing who's had a limited playing time the past couple of weeks. And the Mets do want to make sure that Acuna maximizes at-bats and potentially is a guy that isn't going to impact him as much on the major league level that they would otherwise like. It would make sense in that scenario then to eventually send down Luis Angel Acuna, make sure he's getting daily consistent reps in AAA, because again, you don't want him to rot away on the bench. That was something that David Stearns was fairly adamant about heading into the regular season with the younger players in particular, wanting to make sure that these are not guys that are going to be rotting away on the bench all year long. That's going to hinder their development. We all know the upside with someone like Luis Angel Angel Acuna. I think we can all agree it's fantastic, it's exciting, it's something that we Mets fans want to see more consistently at the major league level. But if it's not going to happen, the Mets might as well make sure they have a backup plan that is MLB ready. And a right-handed bat that you can come off the bench, especially that can play various infield positions should you guys need to lean on him to do so. David Villar can come in the pinch and at least be a relatively productive batter, right around the same group of a player, I would say, as like a Jose Ascar, right? And Ascar, funny enough, was just picked up by the Atlanta Braves. So the Braves have picked up 2 Mets who were DFA'd the past week to 10 days. First was Kevin Herget. Kevin Herget, the reliever that many of you guys might remember, had an outing or so with the Mets. Grew up a David Wright fan, which was really cool. Now he's with the Atlanta Braves, unfortunately. Now Atlanta just picked up Jose Ascar, as it looks like their pitcher and AJ is going to be going down with a long-term IL stint there with the elbow after hearing a pop yesterday. Was not good on the Braves front, but for the Mets here, to simply put a pin in this looks like a potential veteran infielder that the Mets picked up, David Stearns in particular, knowing that they can lean on him in a pinch should they not want a guy like Acuna to rot away on the bench, and maybe they just want Villar on the team north of a week or so, see what he has before considering someone else, whether that is potentially Ronnie Mauricio or someone else that is yet to be seen. But that is in essence why the Mets made this move. It's to get more bulk work at the minor league level than anything else, but knowing that they can lean and depend on him at a short stint should they feel it worthy to call upon as someone like Mr. David Villar here. So Mets fans, definitely let me know your thoughts about David Villar in the comments down below, because let's now go from talking about David Villar to talking about a guy that we hope is not blocked because of someone like David Villar that I just alluded to, and that's going to be the continued greatness that we have seen thus far from, yes, you guessed it, everybody, Mr. Roddy Mauricio. Guys, Roddy Mauricio just continues to tear the cover off the ball. He continues to warrant these discussions to say, hey, Roddy Mauricio, it's not a matter of if, but when he's called up by the Mets this season. Because in Roddy's latest stint here for the Syracuse Mets, in which they had a monstrous victory in their latest matchup, everybody, that will relay the Syracuse Mets numbers of, and that will do more of a prospect report later on the show here. We did see Roddy Mauricio help the Syracuse Mets get to a 12-3 victory over the Chicago Cubs affiliate. Syracuse is now just 4 games below 500 on the year, but Roddy Mauricio, who is batting third and got a full start at third base, mind you, Ronnie has had full starts at second base, third base, DH, and I believe shortstop to a degree, but right now Ronnie's looking fantastic in that left side of the infield, and his latest game that we saw this past night went 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored and a home run right around 106 or at least 105 miles per hour off the bat. Roddy Mauricio is tearing the cover off the ball. He's already got at least 3 home runs on the season in a very small sample size of games there for the Syracuse Mets. And he's up to a 560 average and a just under 1600 OPS, everybody. And what you guys are currently watching, the highlights right there, is a combination of all the key highlights Roddy Mauricio has pretty much had so far this year at Syracuse. I've been relaying all of them every single time I give you guys a Roddy Mauricio update, so that way you're not stuck watching the same 20-second clip every time. But this is north of 2 minutes of highlights that I got for you guys right now. But the best part of it all is that every single day I'm adding new highlights to the Roddy Mauricio reel. What does that mean? It means that Roddy Mauricio continues to, again, just look more and more fantastic with each passing day. And we know the guy tears the cover off the ball. Again, the early peripherals that we're getting are absurd. He's in the 99th and 100th percentile in so much numbers already, and the very small sample size there in Syracuse. Mainly when we're looking at hard contact, obviously, barrel percentage there, average exit velocity, among other things. He's just looking like an absolute man possessed. And we all know that Roddy Mauricio has the bat-to-ball skills to impact this Mets team now at the major league level, which is why we've warranted the discussion the past number of days, saying that if Jared Young's going to be up with this team, how long is Young going to be with this team before the Mets consider someone like Ronnie? You know, Beatty isn't going to go anywhere because of his defensive upside, and he's finally starting to drive in left baseballs, leading to Beatty's right around 750 OPS on the season, which is really good to see in the sample size that he's had thus far. In the case of Roddy Mauricio, though, folks, yes, does he need more seasoning? Absolutely. That's why the Mets are not going out of the way to rush him up to the major leagues right now, and there's a reality where Roddy does not get called up for a number of weeks still because they just want to make sure that he's defensively sound first and foremost, and that's perfectly fine if that's the case, but I mean, I don't really think there's anything else that he needs to prove at the minor league front. Again, I understand we're looking at a north of a 10-game sample size or so. Still doesn't change the fact how impressive he's looked out there. Batting over 500 at any stretch is stupid. And then at just under 1600 OPS, yeah. Roddy Mauricio is looking pretty darn impressive, if you ask me. And Roddy was just anointed this past day or so Player of the Week there in AAA for Syracuse. So, again, everything is clicking on the Roddy Mauricio front, and I would love to hear from you Mets fans in the comments down below. One, how impressed do you continue to be from someone like him? him in the farm? And secondly, when do you expect a guy like Mauricio to get the call this season? Because right now he's literally doing everything and then some. And you can't say, oh, Mauricio is only playing DH, so he needs a lot more defensive reps. Well, he's getting consistent reps at third base and second base, and he's looking perfectly fine there. So that's all I got to say on the Mauricio front for now, everybody. But I definitely want to hear from you guys, your thoughts on all the following. And thank you guys so much for doing exactly that. Because now let's go on from talking about Mauricio to now talking about what is happening also in this game for the Syracuse Mets. Because Ronnie wasn't the only one that stood out in this matchup that I want to emphasize here. Another man that certainly stood out big time is on the pitching end. And yeah, for the first time in a hot minute, guys, we have Mr. Blade Tidwell to discuss. Because in case you guys did not see how Syracuse performed this past day, they won 12-3, but it was also because of another fantastic pitching performance. This time from, yes, Mr. Blade Tidwell. The same Blade Tidwell obviously got rocked when he was caught up to the major league level in that doubleheader against the St. Louis Cardinals not too long ago this season. But Blade, guys, just take a look at the following numbers. Blade Tidwell is the third pitcher over the past 10 days or so in the Mets farm between himself, Jonah, and Zach Thornton to give up no hits in his outing. Really cool stuff. And crazy thing is that he still somehow gave up runs that you see because of the 4 walks that he allowed to get on base. Otherwise, Blade Tidwell was absolutely in a groove. He goes 5.0, and I actually sincerely apologize for that, everybody. I realize I just had the audio running, so if the past 30 seconds were a bit too much audio going on where you heard the highlights and myself, I apologize for that. But they should be off now. So getting back to Blade Tidwell, again, as I said a second ago, Blade Tidwell is the third Mets pitching prospect the past 10 days alone or so that's had pretty much a no-no going for however long he was out there. In particular, everybody, in case you guys are wondering what exactly is going on here, it is the following. Blade Tidwell, 5.2 innings, 2 earned runs thanks to the 4 walks, 0 hits, 11 strikeouts, and a 3.97 ERA. Blade Tidwell did in fact touch 99 on the gun. His velocity is absolutely fantastic, and you absolutely love to see that too. So what do the Mets have right now in Blade Tidwell, guys? They have a guy who, in my opinion, is still going to profile best at the major league level as a reliever than a starter. I just have my natural reservations with how his stuff plays up. I think his stuff can be so electric to handle in a reliever setting than a starter setting. Just from what we've seen him trying to get acclimated and really getting in a groove at the minor league level in Syracuse, I just still have my reservations as to if this is going to be a guy that the Mets can really depend on there to be more than a reliever standout for them as he continues to develop his young game. But I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Your thoughts on the following in regards to Blade Tidwell. And we also have another pitching prospect that I'm also excited to break down here. Not only did Blade stand out big time in his latest outing, helping Syracuse to that 12-3 victory, and while we're here, I might as well relay how the Syracuse Mets performed in this 12-3 win, and it did consist of the following, everybody. Celestino, we saw rip himself his 8th double of the year, commanding right field, batting second when at just under 800 OPS and at just under 300 average. We also saw Hernandez there, who was batting 9th at shortstop with his 3rd double of the season. Outside that, Drew Gilbert went 0 and this one would run scored. Drew Gilbert has really quieted down in Syracuse the past couple weeks, now down to a 202 average, 624 OPS. Dalvin Walton had an RBI, 232 average, 700 OPS in left field because he's playing all over the place. De Los Santos, 2 for 5 game with a RBI as well. Luke Ritter with a 1 for 2 game with 3 RBIs, but that's pretty much all she wrote there on the offensive end. And pitching-wise, Danilo Nunez did allow a run to come in after he came in for inherited runners. I think he allowed 2 inherited runners to score, and then 1 was ultimately charged with him as he continued for 1.1 innings. Has a 3.21 ERA in the minor leagues thus far, and we'll see how long it'll take before Danilo Nunez is called back up to this Mets bullpen. Austin Warren had a scoreless outing, 2.29 ERA, and Colin Poche, a southpaw option, who I do think the Mets will consider sooner rather than later, especially after allowing Jesus Cabrera to walk, has just over a 4 ERA now in the minor leagues this season with a pair of strikeouts in said outing. And speaking of the minor leagues, everybody, now let's hop over to the Rebel Ponies, because the Rebel Ponies had themselves a 2-1 victory over the Bay Sox this past day. But the reason why it was such a low-scoring game but still prevailed for the Rebel Ponies' favor had everything to do with what we saw from Mr. Jonah on the pitching end. Let me show you guys exactly how Ton performed in this latest outing, because he was unbelievably sharp. Again, I'm very excited as a Mets fan to see the continued dominance that we're getting from Jonah right now, everybody. And as you guys can see now from the stat line, Jonah, his last outing, mind you, he was absurd. He had 13 strikeouts, pretty much a perfect game going, over 7 innings, but he won 6.2 to be exact. Now in his latest outing from this past night in the Rumble Ponies 2-1 victory over the Bay Sox, he goes 6 innings on 82 pitches, 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts at 2.25 ERA. Yeah, Jonah is looking absolutely electric right now, everybody. And the more Ton looks electric, the more I'm feeling absolutely ecstatic as a Mets fan when you look at the farm and the depth that they have right now between Ton, between Brandon Sproat, obviously, who's honestly out of the 3 between himself and McLean, he's 3rd on the list right now because he has been the least impressive out of the 3 on a consistent basis on the minor league front, whereas Ton has been cruising all year long at this point after starting off the season not overly dominant. Again, had some not so great starts, but he's really starting to get into the groove now. And as you guys see just from the photo I'm using the graphic, that his windup is so sick and just how much his body bends the way that he does there. That goes back to spring training that we saw that. But Jonah, what is there to know about him? This is a kid that many deem as some of the best stuff and best high upside out of all eligible pitchers currently in the farm. Now, Ton is expected to get called up to Syracuse Mets likely before the first half of this season is done, if I had to assume, but we'll find out exactly how much longer it'll be. Again, can't imagine it'll be that much longer, but just how much longer it'll be before Jonah finds himself there at the Syracuse level and then inevitably at the major league level, hopefully not too long after that. When you think of the Mets pitching prospects and talents, I say this every week and I'll continue to beat this drum because it's just exciting. You look at the potential rotation for 2025, and not that these guys can't impact us down the stretch this year, because they may certainly do that. Headlined by Noah McLean, who went 5.1 or 5.2 innings of 2 earned run baseball 48 hours ago, which we're not complaining about at all. Another sharp outing there from McLean, who has like just over a 2 ERA thus far for Syracuse. But for the Mets here and Jonah, what I love is that you have Ton, McLean, Sproat, Christian Scott, all as starters that could potentially be impacting this rotation next season, and all guys that are homegrown talents. And 2 out of the 4 were teammates during their time in college, that being Christian Scott there and Brandon Sproat during their time as Florida Gators. So I'm really intrigued to see what the continued growth and development is going to be for these young arms. But yeah, the Mets now clearly have an abundance. And then when you add in the guys like Zach Thornton to a degree, among others, you are really looking at a group that's looking fantastic. Jonathan Santucci as well, that we're going to talk about in a second as we break down more of these prospects, everybody. But from this Rumble Ponies matchup and their 2-1 victory, the notables were that we saw Nick Morabito have not 1 but 2 doubles. He's now got 12 doubles on the year for Morabito, batting .225 with a 745 OPS. Jet Williams won 1 for 3, a batting leadoff at shortstop with a run scored, 286 average, 858 OPS. Another guy that won't be long before he's in Syracuse. Nick Morabito has a 274 average and 759 OPS. I apologize, I read the wrong numbers a second ago. Ryan Clifford has a 225 average and 745 OPS. That comes with a 1 for 2 game and an RBI and a pair of walks. Outside of that, no one else hit offensively. And pitching wise, we saw Ross have himself a scroll sitting there after Ton, so that was certainly encouraging to see too. But that does it there for the Rumble Ponies update and Jonah, everybody. So now let's get on to talking about what you guys maybe clicked on this video for, which has to do with the latest news regarding, yes, Mr. Frankie Montas. So let's go ahead and talk about Frankie Montas here, everybody, and what is happening with him and his latest outing, because as you guys can see from the following, Frankie Montas had his second rehab outing there that we saw for Syracuse, not Syracuse, for the Brooklyn Cyclones. And this was another Frankie Montas outing where, again, leaves a bit to be desired, but have to understand that it's his rehab outings. It really doesn't matter if he's batting practice or not. He's just getting ramped up, getting those pitches in. That's the most important thing for him. Montas, as we know, who signed with the Mets entering the season there on a lofty contract, $34 million of total contract worth, and that was pretty much to box Luis Severino out of things and for to bring in Montas as his replacement. Montas, who pitched over 30 games last year from the Reds to the Brewers and was solid in doing so. The Mets also faced him in the wild card round, if you guys remember that, against the Brewers. He wasn't great, but also not the worst thing imaginable either. Montas now, in 3 innings, went 49 pitches, 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 earned runs, and 3 strikeouts. Obviously, there's still a lot more ramp up and work to do with Montas, but this is a very encouraging sign as he's slowly but surely working his way back. Now, as we know, Shamania supposedly had himself a bullpen this past day on Friday, so as long as that went well with Jose Siri batting, there is a great reality that we're going to see Shamania begin his rehab stint there not long from the time of us being recording this video right now. So Frankie Montas, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, fastball again still sitting in the 93 to 95 range or so. So he'll continue to get that uptick on the velocity and more command and comfortability as these rehab outings go on, everybody. But both Montas and Manaea have been long expected to return to the Mets in the early goings of June. Given the fact that June is right around the corner a couple days from now, I'm going to go on a limb and say that if he does, in fact, arrive with the Mets here in the month of June, it's going to probably be more so, I'd say, around, mid-June at this rate, right? Because he still needs multiple rehab outings to get worked up to that starter workload. So I'd say right around mid-June is a very reasonable time frame for Frankie Montas, if not sooner. And I think same applies with Sean Manaea for the most part, because both these guys have to get ramped back up to starter workloads, which means that he's at 49 pitches. So maybe he will arrive a little bit sooner than I initially anticipated, but obviously won't be that first week of the season there on June against the LA Dodgers in LA. I will be in attendance for that first game in LA and for some of that series, but Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea most certainly will not be. So Mets fans, definitely let me know all your thoughts on the Frankie Montas front right there, and thank you guys so much for doing exactly that. I do have a couple more things I got to share with you guys before we end up wrapping up the show here. So as we head back here to the main slide, and let me show you guys just some pretty highlights that I've been running before, and that had everything to do with Mr. Ronnie Mauricio. If you're going to watch any highlights beside me, you might as well watch some really nice Ronnie Mauricio highlights, right? But also, we did have some news just drop right at the time of us recording this video live, so we might as well talk about it live as it's happening. The Mets are officially hiring Lou Scher as their new president of business operations. The Mets announced the departure of Scott Havens earlier this week. Scher has been the CEO and executive director of the U.S. Tennis Association since 2022. So this obviously doesn't impact anything on the David Stearns front, because David Stearns is the president of baseball operations. But now on the business aspect, they're bringing in Mr. Lou Scher here. And I'm going to check out this article. This initially comes out here through AP News. Just to expand on this further, Scher, he has been on the U.S. Tennis Association since 2022 as their executive director, has worked there since 2010, including previously as chief revenue officer. His departure was announced by the USTA on Friday. He'll remain there until the end of June, then start with the Mets in July. That makes sense. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap and connection just from tennis to the Mets in general when you have the US Open like literally right next to Citi Field basically. So that's not overly shocking to see. Just see if there's any more tidbits in here that I should relay to you guys. Let's see here, everybody. It does go on to say that Steve Cohen is among the bettors for 3 casino licenses to be awarded by the New York State Gaming Commission, and has been lobbying to have state legislative reclassify the parking lots adjacent to Citi Field, also near the facility that hosts the U.S. Open, from parkland and commercial land for a gaming facility. And that is all looking like it's going to happen, everybody. We see more and more clearances come through for Steve Cohen on the front of not only looking to have casinos, but also trying to build hotels and everything else that he's trying to build for that true metropolitan park around Citi Field, that whole thing that he's building. He continues to get clearances, and there is major headway that's happening on that front right now. So very interesting hire there for the Mets on the business aspect. Once we get to learn more about the guy and see exactly what his roles will entail with the Mets, we'll talk more about that in the future. But I would love to hear your thoughts about that in the comments down below, everybody, because now let's go on to talking about a little bit more here on the prospect front, and then we're also going to talk a bit on what is happening with guys and Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and a quick preview before wrapping up the show of that Rockies series. Let me also just go here for 1 second, everybody. And again, appreciate everyone's patience. Gonna actually go ahead and just switch this real quick. So there we go. There we go. That should not be a problem now. Everything should be loaded. Bang, bang, boom. And we should be good. Okay, guys. So now, guys, let's talk about one of the final topics in today's video, which has to do with the minor leagues. So we talked about, obviously, what happened with the Rumble Ponies. We talked about what happened there in Syracuse. Let's talk briefly about what also happened this past night that we saw with the Brooklyn Cyclones. Because for the Brooklyn Cyclones, not only did Frankie Montas have himself 3 innings of 2 earned runs, but we also saw Jonathan Santucci come in long relief and go 5.1 innings of 2 hit, 0 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeout baseball. So really, really good stuff there by Santucci. Has a sub-5 ERA, but impressive outing to say the least. Now that makes 3 straight strong outings that we've seen from Santucci. And on the offensive end, we saw AJ Ewing, another fantastic day there with the bat, this time in center field, 2 for 5 with an RBI, 343 average, and 906 OPS. Ewing is a name that it feels like it won't be long on before he then even moves up to where he's currently at right now with the Brooklyn Cyclones. Might not be long before he's with the Rum Ponies, the way that he's skyrocketing in the farm this year. Carson Bench, another productive day for him. 1 for 4 with a run, scored 305, average 940 OPS for the 2024 first-round pick under the David Stearns era. They're committing right field. Jacob Reimer, another big game for him at the hot corner. Monster game for him. 2 for 4 with 3 runs scored. 323 average, 993 OPS. Jesus Baez, who was fantastic over the past week to 10 days, 1 for 3 at DH, 281 average, 803 OPS. Vargas, 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, 238 average, 621 OPS. Suero, 0 for, but 2 RBIs, 237 average, 830 OPS. Anthony DeComo just came out with a nice piece on Suero. But if you guys have been following the platform, we've talked about him a lot the past 3 weeks. Suero, a Bronx native, playing now in Brooklyn, which is really cool. Can play catcher, can play DH, can play first base, can play a little bit of the corner outfield. He can play all over the place. One of the more uber athletic prospects the Mets have in the farm right now, and that does it there for what you need to know on the Brooklyn Cyclones front. So last but not least, Port St. Lucie Mets, for what feels like the first time in forever, are actually a good team. They're 27-21 so far this season, and I understand there's a lot more baseball to be had, but I'm not used to the Port St. Lucie Mets really ever having a winning record. They have that right now, and they won 3-0 over the Cardinals out of Palm Beach, and they're grateful that they don't have to face a Jacob deGrom rehab stint, because remember when deGrom was always facing off against the Palm Beach Cardinals there in the minor leagues, and they're like, oh brother, here we go again. Colin Houck had himself a nice game there, 1 for 2 with an RBI for Houck, his 4th triple of the year, encouraging signs. 225 average, but a 757 OPS for the 2023 first round draft pick. Outside of that, nothing else to really make too much note of. And pitching wise, we saw Austin go 5 innings of scoreless baseball, 4 hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, a 4.5 ERA. And Mercedes went 4 shutty on the reliever front with 3 strikeouts, but still has a 6.5 ERA there in the minor leagues. So now, guys, let's go on to talk about what is happening with guys in both Francisco Lindor and, yes, Juan Soto, because there is a fantastic piece that just came out recently that I want to emphasize here. This is all courtesy of Mr. Wolf Sammon of The Athletic, doing a brilliant job, and we're going to get into some key quotes here from his articles that he came out with today and also the day prior. And let's start here with what you guys can see on the Juan Soto front, because Juan Soto had a really interesting quote that Wolf Sammon was able to get that I'm going to share with you guys, and it is as follows, everybody. Juan Soto has, in fact, implemented a ritual for the Mets outfielders following each half inning of play in the field. The 3 players wait for each other before entering the dugout. And this comes again from Sammon's article stating the following, and I quote, and again, guys, if you want to check out these articles in full, I will have both this article and the Lindor article linked down below in the description for you guys to check out, as always. And I quote, back in spring training, Soto whistled in the direction of Brandon Nimmo to get the veteran's attention. Nimmo made a beeline toward the Mets dugout after a half inning on defense. When his eyes met Soto, Soto told him, per Nimmo's recollection, and I quote, we're staying here. We're going to do something with all the outfielders here. Soto, who got the idea from Kyle Schwarber during his small stint with Schwarber for half a season there that we saw a couple years ago in DC. I know we are a whole team, but as outfielders, we have a lot of responsibilities back there. So if we can stick together more and more, even when guys do make an error or something, just pick them up, have a talk before going into hit. It's huge for me. After Schwarber taught me that, I started doing it, and I feel like a lot of my teammates appreciate it. So listen, we can sit here and be as underwhelmed as possible about Juan Soto's offensive production or lack thereof. And it's 1,000% true that we all have every rightful reason to be underwhelmed by Juan Soto so far as a New York Met. But this is not only accountability, but this is how you build a proper culture. This is how you build not only a good clubhouse, but a better on-field product. And naturally, when Juan Soto finally gets these balls start to drop, once he starts to swing more at pitches in the zone, because he's not swinging at pitches in the zone nearly as much as he should versus what we've seen in previous years to the same degree. Juan Soto, we know, has the potential to just lead this Mets team, hopefully to the promised land or close to. But in order for us to get there, you need to have a balance of everything, both offensively, defensively, and your personalities with their respective players on the field, off the field, in the clubhouse. So to have this kind of bond and relationship going is encouraging. Never going to complain about that. And you know, guys, this is the same Juan Soto that I'm seeing a lot of fans say, oh, he's miserable, he's all these things. But I do want to enlighten you guys. There's one further Juan Soto thing that I do want to share here. And that's this. Take a look at this, everybody. Look at this. Does Juan Soto look miserable to you guys here? You let me know. You let me know. So Juan Soto, right beside me, is unveiling his new DR jersey. That's going to be a giveaway to the first certain thousand of fans on June 11th at Citi Field. I'm very tempted to try to attend this game, mainly because I really just want this jersey, if I'm being honest with you. It looks sick. Even though I'm not Dominican, doesn't mean I can't rock it as someone who already has a Francisco Lindor Team Puerto Rico jersey from the time I attended the WBC a couple years ago, and that just looks sick. Look at him cheesing. Look how happy Juan Soto is, and you mean to tell me that this guy is miserable to be a New York Met? No, he's been miserable, if anything, because of his lack of production. He's been miserable because he's been trying to get acclimated with a new team, and it hasn't necessarily been as smooth of adjustment that he would otherwise like with his obviously on-field at-bat product. He has not performed nearly to the degree that us Mets fans want him to do. But again, this is an encouraging sign right here, because if you're having Juan Soto all cheesing about his giveaway coming up, hopefully that's a game on June 11th, especially that, you know, he kind of has a big baller game out of, because he knows that the jerseys are being spread out. Again, might obviously not happen. He may just top over a couple easy ground outs to first and that be that for the ball game. We'll soon find out, but still encouraging things there for Juan Soto. Now it just comes down to him actually playing good baseball, right? So now going on from Juan Soto, let's talk about another man that we had to break down today, and that was going to be Mr. Francisco Lindor, because Francisco Lindor, guys, and yeah, look at these numbers for a second. I did want to talk about this briefly. As I've been telling you guys, the Mets have the fourth worst batting average in MLB with runners in scoring position. Horrendous. We're now down to 211. The fact that the Rockies have a .1 team batting average better than us with runners in scoring position tells you how much this needs to get fixed. The Rockies, the effing Rockies that we're going to talk about in a second. I digress. Also, shout out to my guy, Keith. If you guys don't know Keith, he is a fantastic Mets content creator as well. Good buddy of mine. And Keith also, with his Shane Sons podcast, likes to relay some numbers, as I do as well. And he relayed the following on X this past day. And they are notable because you look at the Mets have more home runs than the Braves, the Twins, and the Rangers with runners in scoring position. Mind you, the Rangers is a low bar because the Rangers and the Twins are low bars. So I wouldn't use them as great comps. Twins can't stay healthy. Rangers offense has been abysmal this year. Braves start off horrendous, but now they're picking up with Acuna back. The Mets are tied for 9th in doubles with runners in scoring position. The Mets are ranked 15th in RBIs with runners in scoring position. The Mets are 4th best in sac flies with runners in scoring position. The Mets have the 3rd best walk rate with runners in scoring position. That's a problem, though. The Mets have this great act for always getting the line going. We're walking everybody and their mother, but not getting that clutch hit nearly enough. Because why? They're passing the baton too much instead of stepping up and having a quality at bat the way we know we need guys like Soto and at times Alonso too. Even though Alonso has a 321 average with runners in scoring position, he's not batting like a $130 the way that Soto and Lindor is right now. Lindor, I think, is at 160, and Soto, I think, is at 130. Just not ideal. The Mets have the 5th best K percentage, at least amount of Ks with runners in scoring position. All the underlying numbers continue to tell you not only this, but Baseball Savant as well. They tell you that this Mets offense will, in fact, break out. But it's still a matter of when is it going to happen, right? And the longer we wait, the longer the season goes on, the longer that we have to be concerned as fans that they're not getting in the groove nearly enough with runners in scoring position. But that's enough of my little TED Talk tangent there. I know you guys will have some choice words about that in the comments down below. So last but not least, let's get on to the Francisco Lindor quote here, everybody. Again, once more courtesy of old Sammon with the great article he just dropped, which states the following: Francisco Lindor does something unique as a leader that players in the Mets clubhouse credit him for. He goes to each teammate's locker and checks in on them after every series. It's almost like what a captain would do. It's almost like Lindor is without question the Mets captain, and he will be anointed that officially either on the day of David Retirement's number day or a different day this year. It just feels impossible for it to not happen this season at any point. And I've suggested the right stuff going back to the offseason this past year. I see how it would be electric, and I also see why it maybe takes a little bit away from Wright's day. So if it doesn't happen, no worries at all. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm saying is don't be shocked if it does, because it does make a level of sense if Wright was like, and it's with great honor that now that my number 5 has officially been retired, I am passing the torch from one Mets captain to another. Francisco, get your butt up here. Congratulations on being anointed the official captain of the New York Mets. Like, if something along those lines happen, I will lose my mind. I'm waiting for it. You're waiting for it too, Mets fans. Just a matter of when, not if at this point. Lindor, and I quote, "For me, it's more instinctual. It's like walking into my house and saying hello to my kids." I'm sorry, but there's something so funny about this. Lindor walks into the house after a long day of baseball to see the kiddos, right? His daughters and now his newborn son. And then you're doing that as a comp. So, like, here I am thinking this quote's going to be, okay, walking into my house and saying hello to my brothers. No, it's my kids. So Lindor really is the captain. He's like, all right, guys, settle down. As you got Soto and Diaz chopping up there, because Soto loves to chop it up with not only Diaz, but the entire Mets bullpen. So he's hanging out with the bullpen group. Then you got other players in this corner. You got other players in this corner. Lindor walks in. He's like, how we doing, everybody? How we feeling? So Shamanaya, and I quote, it goes a long way in making people feel welcome. I've never seen it before. I can't think of anyone I played with that would do something like that. It's very unique and special. Soto said, I really respect that. He really cares about the guys. That's huge for a team, to show a little love to every player and have them know that you always have their back. Even if they have a bad day, it's big time. And this is the kind of character building that Juan Soto is going to learn more and more from. And this is not a slight at all on Judge, but this is something that even I haven't heard Aaron Judge be doing such a thing. And the reason why I make note of that is mainly because, again, this is a captain type thing a player does, right? You are a captain if you're going out your way to individually chop it up with every single player at their locker before a game starts or after a game, something along those lines. And that's really important to do as a captain, as a leader, and just, I can't, crazy enough, if there's one thing we can always thank Jared Porter for, it might not be the very unfortunate scandal for his sake that came out not long after he became the GM for the Mets entering the 2021 season. And yeah, that's his own problem. We all know that very well. If there's one thing that man did in like a month's time of being Mets GM, he literally made one of the largest and most impactful moves in team history. And also, without question, one of the most lopsided moves in team history. Andres Gimenez is a good player, but not a great player. Lindor is a great player, right? You think of Ahmad Rosario. He's with the Nationals now, but he's been a fringe MLB player all over the place since then, right? You think of Josh Wolf and who's the other player, the other prospect that was part of that trade? A no name. The point is that from what the Mets gave up for Lindor, Lindor has not only exceeded the trade value and expectation, but he's going to go down as one of the best Mets of all time. That is the already class that we're finding ourselves in with Francisco Lindor. So very exciting stuff, guys. And again, if you want to learn more about how Lindor is so impactful, check out the article linked down below from Will Stammen of The Athletic. And shout out to Will because he does a fantastic job. But before we get out of here, everybody, last thing, the Colorado Rockies start their matchup against the Mets tonight. What do you need to know? I'm not giving you guys a spiel on all this nonsense. Listen, I will give you the quickest rundown as to what the pitching matchups are, but I'm not going down what to look for from the Rockies and what to look for from the Mets. Kyle Freeland, with his 0-7 record and just under a 6 ERA, is facing David Pearson. David Pearson has himself a 2.79 ERA and 3-2 on the year. Game 2, it's Kodai Senga and Senzatella. Senzatella has a 6.5 ERA. He's 1-9 on the season, and Senga has a 1.46 ERA and a 5-3 record on the year. The series finale of this matchup that we're going to see between the Mets and the Rockies on the first, and that is going to be Palmquist, the southpaw, a 0-3 record with a just under 90 ERA, facing Clay Holmes and his sub-3 ERA and 5-3 record. Guys, the Rockies are on pace to have not even 30 wins this year. They're 9-47. They're 9-47. The Rockies are on pace for pretty much the worst season imaginable in Major League Baseball history. All right? That is how bad they have been this season. If the Mets do not sweep the Colorado Rockies, I will lose my mind. Miss me with the nonsense on, oh, you just got to prioritize winning series. No, there's a difference between prioritizing winning a series against a decent or good team versus winning a series against a dog you-know-what team, a bottom feeder team. The same way the Mets should have swept the White Sox is the same way the Mets should have swept the Pirates is the same way the Mets need to sweep the Rockies. Anything short is a disappointment. I don't care what anyone says. And this is not about, oh, Wardy, why are you on a high horse expecting the Mets to win every game? That's not the point. I do not expect the Mets to win 162 games. I do expect them to win at least 60. The same way I expect them to lose at least 60. What you do with the remaining 42 games, as Ron Darling always famously says, is indicative on how you are as a team. And for the Mets here, these are series that you need to absolutely blow out and clean out like every other team in baseball so far this season has essentially done against the Rockies, with the exception of a handful of clubs. The Mets are too good to drop even one measly effing game at home against these Rockies. And if it has it, and if it does happen, I'm going to call them out for it because there's nothing to justify. If the Rockies have a great day at the plate, that's because the pitching somehow didn't have it and the offense didn't show up. The offense needs to show up every single game of this series. You have a 4-game gauntlet in LA against the Dodgers. I'll be in attendance for game 1 of that series in LA, so I hope to see many Mets fans there repping and Cali. Can't wait for it. I'll give you guys more details on that in the near future on the platform throughout the weekend. But guys, that's going to do it for our latest Big Mets Update segment. Please let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below to the following topics. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, this is your guy Wardy signing out. See you guys later. Peace out, everybody. Let's go Mets.